Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, yet still getting left behind? You work hard, follow every success formula people talk about, but somehow you still end up feeling ordinary, just another person in a crowd of millions doing the same thing. It's not your fault. It's the result of living in a world where everyone's trying to do the exact same thing, posting the same kinds of videos, giving the same motivational talks, selling the same products, and chasing the same dream of recognition. From content creators on LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube to business owners and office workers, everyone is in a race to be seen. But here's the irony. When everyone is trying to stand out, no one really does. Over 20 years ago, Jack Trout saw this coming. He said, "If you're not different, you disappear." At the time, he was talking about marketing, but today, that truth applies to our entire lives. In a world where AI can write, draw, speak, and even create for us, the only thing it can't replicate is how far you're willing to go to be different. In this audiobook summary, we'll explore the powerful lessons from Differentiate or Die. Lessons that will help you thrive on your journey of entrepreneurship and personal growth. Because to survive today, being good is no longer enough. You have to be different. If this sounds like the journey you're meant to take, hit the like button and subscribe now so you won't miss the books that can transform the way you think about money, success, and your future. Part 1. The market doesn't reward almost different. The market doesn't care how good you are. It only cares whether you're different. That's a brutal truth most people learn far too late. Jack Trout once said that in a world overflowing with choices, being different is not optional. It's survival. If you're not different, you don't just lose customers, you lose your place in the world. Look at America's past, and you'll see how many names were once icons and then vanished simply because they stopped being different. Sears was once the dream of the American middle class, where every family ordered from their famous catalog. Radio Shack was the go-to store for everyday tech, where you drop by for a few electronic parts or a pack of batteries. JCPenney used to be the nation's department store. They were once part of America's collective memory. Now, that memory belongs to the museum of dead brands. They didn't fall overnight. They died slowly in repetition. The same shock sale ads, the same store layouts, the same customer service. And when everything looks the same, customers only care about one thing left to compare: the cheaper price. Then came Amazon. No flashy TV ads, no 50% discounts, no hype. Just a completely different experience. Convenient shopping, fast delivery, personalized recommendations. While the old giants were spending money trying to be seen, Amazon was using data to understand. That difference changed everything. They didn't try to be a better Sears or JCPenney. They chose to be something else entirely. And the market chose them. Just like Netflix and Blockbuster. When Netflix offered to collaborate, Blockbuster laughed. Who would pay to watch movies online when our stores are always full? 5 years later, Blockbuster went bankrupt. Netflix became an empire. That story isn't just a business lesson. It's a mirror for every one of us. Think about it. In your work, in your content, in the person you're becoming, are you truly different or just a slightly better version of someone else? Because the market, like life, doesn't reward almost. No one remembers the person who was almost good, almost original, almost great. The world only remembers those who dared to be different. And here's the scary part. Sometimes you don't lose because you're worse. You lose because someone else looks just like you, only cheaper, faster, or bigger. Jack Trout called this the death of similarity. It's what happens when there's no longer any reason for people to choose you, no matter how good you are. In an era where AI can replicate your voice, your image, even your creative style, the only thing left is the soul of your difference, something that can't be programmed, trained, or copied. So ask yourself, if you disappeared tomorrow, would the world notice something unique that only you brought to it? If you're not sure, maybe it's time to pause and ask the most important question of all. What makes me different? And do I have the courage to protect it?
Part 2. When the real battlefield is the customer's mind. Jack Trout once said, "Marketing is not a battle of products, it's a battle of perceptions." And he was absolutely right. Because in this world, what you sell matters far less than how people think about it. You can have a better product, more advanced technology, or even a cheaper price. But if customers don't feel that you are different, then you're not different at all. Every decision, whether it's buying, investing, or trusting someone, begins in the mind. Take the battle between Pepsi and Coca-Cola. In blind taste tests, millions of people actually preferred Pepsi. Yet when they went back to the store, most of them still bought Coca-Cola. Why? Because Coca-Cola doesn't just sell soda, it sells memories. They connect their brand with emotions, Christmas, friendship, family, and moments of togetherness. They didn't win the taste buds, they won the mind. Jack Trout called this positioning, the art of owning a space in someone's mind. You don't need to be everywhere, you just need to be in the right place, inside people's perceptions. And here's the irony. The more choices people have, the narrower their minds become. In a world flooded with information, we don't choose the best option, we choose the most familiar one. That's why brands like Apple don't talk about processors or specs. They talk about creativity. They don't sell phones, they sell difference. And that's why they live in people's minds as a symbol, not just a product. But this isn't just true in business, it's true in life. In America today, there are millions of talented, educated, and highly skilled people. And yet, no one really remembers them. Not because they lack ability, but because they've never built a position for themselves in the minds of others. They keep striving to be better, while the world only remembers those who are different. That's the mistake so many businesses and people make. They believe that if their work is good enough, if they try hard enough, people will eventually see their true value. But the market doesn't work like a fair system. It works like a mirror, reflecting what you've planted in others' minds, not what you secretly believe about yourself. Think about it. How many times have you chosen a brand simply because it felt trustworthy, even though you never actually verified its quality? That's proof that the real battlefield isn't out there, it's inside the human mind. And if you don't position yourself intentionally, others will do it for you. They'll label you as ordinary, just another one, and you'll fade into the background of sameness. Jack Trout once wrote, "Perception is reality," and he meant it. It doesn't matter who you think you are. What matters is who others think you are. So the question is, in the minds of your customers or in the mind of the world, what position do you hold? Are you the first name they remember, or just another name that gets replaced by someone almost like you? Part 3. When too many choices kill the power of difference. Have you ever walked into an American supermarket, stood in front of the cereal aisle, and just felt paralyzed? Hundreds of brands, Kellogg's, Cheerios, Special K, Lucky Charms, Quaker, each with dozens of versions, low sugar, gluten-free, organic, high protein, keto-friendly, and in the end, you just pick the one that feels familiar. That's the paradox of our time. The more choices people have, the less capable they become of actually choosing. Jack Trout called this the paradox of choice. He said, too many choices don't enrich the market, they exhaust the consumer's mind. And in such a world, only the brands with a clear position survive. Take the smartphone industry. Every year, hundreds of new Android phones hit the market, packed with amazing specs, cameras, batteries, and prices. Yet when you ask an American, which phone should I buy? Most will answer instantly, the iPhone. no hesitation, no comparison. Not because it's the best, but because it's the clearest. Apple doesn't try to please everyone. They chose one simple position: think different. While everyone else talks about features, they talk about feelings. While others compete on price, they build trust. And in this overwhelming sea of options, Apple's consistency became the lifeline for tired, overloaded minds. Jack Trout once wrote, "If you can't simplify your message, you'll be buried in the noise of the market." And that's truer today than ever in the digital age. Open TikTok or YouTube right now. Thousands of videos teaching wealth, investing, self-growth. But after a few minutes, they all start to sound the same. The same tone, the same words, the same advice. And you scroll past, remembering no one. America is living in an era of information overload and differentiation shortage. We don't lack knowledge. We lack clarity. We don't lack opportunity. We lack the ability to choose what truly matters. That's why being different is no longer an option. It's a survival strategy. You can't win by offering more choices. You win by making it easier for others to choose you. Look at the fallen giants. Blockbuster had thousands of video rental stores and collapsed because they never realized that Netflix wasn't just selling movies, it was selling convenience. Nokia once ruled the world, but when smartphones exploded, they failed to reposition themselves. They disappeared not because they were bad, but because they were no longer clear in people's minds. And the same is true for us as individuals. When you try to do too many things, you lose your identity. When you try to please everyone, no one truly remembers you. Jack Trout didn't just teach marketing. He taught us how to find our place in a noisy world. Because if you don't define yourself, the world will do it for you. And most of the time, not the way you'd want. So ask yourself, in this massive sea of people, are you a clear choice or just another name fading among millions that look exactly the same?
Part 4. Difference begins with belief. Every great brand and every person who leaves a mark starts with a belief, not an ad campaign. Because you can't make others believe in something you secretly doubt yourself. Think back to the story of Nike. In 1988, they launched the slogan, "Just do it." At first glance, it sounds like 3 simple words, but in truth, it was a declaration of an entire life philosophy. Nike doesn't sell shoes, they sell the belief that anyone can be an athlete. They believe people aren't defined by gender, age, or body type, but by the will to act. That slogan didn't come from a brainstorming session in a corporate office. It came from a genuine conviction, a belief in the spirit of sport, in human potential, in the hunger to push beyond limits. And that belief is what made Nike stand out among hundreds of other sports brands. Adidas, Puma, Reebok, they all talked about products. Only Nike talked about people. Jack Trout called this brand belief, the faith behind the brand. Because in a world where everyone says, we're better, only those who say, we believe in, truly make people stop and listen. The same goes for Tesla. Elon Musk doesn't just build electric cars. He believes the future must be sustainable. And every Tesla is simply one small step toward that dream. When you buy a Tesla, you're not just buying technology, you're buying a vision. That's the power of belief. It turns products into symbols and customers into followers. On the other hand, the fastest falling companies are often those that lose faith in their own identity. They chase trends, shift messages, jump from low cost to luxury, from tech to lifestyle. When they no longer know what they truly believe in, customers stop believing too. Belief is something you can't fake. Americans can forgive an imperfect product, but not an inauthentic brand. In the age of social media, where everything is amplified and scrutinized, even the smallest crack in your integrity can bring everything down. And the same truth applies to us as individuals. You can't earn trust by living every day to meet others' expectations instead of your own values. True difference doesn't start with acting differently, it starts with believing differently. Believing that what you stand for is worth protecting. Believing that your value can't be measured by likes, views, or sales. Jack Trout once wrote, "Differentiation is not a marketing trick. It's a belief you carry every single day." That's why brands like Patagonia endure. They don't spend millions on ads, they spend it to protect the planet. They don't say buy our products, they say buy less, use longer. Because they truly believe that business cannot exist apart from responsibility to the world. Lasting difference always begins with genuine belief. A belief that keeps you grounded when the market shifts and strong when people laugh at you for going against the crowd. And maybe that's the question Jack Trout wanted each of us to ask ourselves. What do you believe in so deeply that you'd stand for it even if no one else does? Because only when you know that belief does true difference begin.
Part 5. When the speed of change outruns awareness. Have you ever felt like the world is moving faster than you can keep up? You just learned a new technology, and it's already outdated. You just mastered a new skill, and AI can now do it 10 times better. You just built your personal brand, and thousands of others are already copying your tone, your style, your thoughts. Jack Trout once warned, "The question is no longer how different you are, but whether you're fast enough to stay different." And he was right. Because in a world where change happens every second, being different is no longer a destination, it's a constant state of adaptation. Look back at the giants that once seemed untouchable. Kodak was once the global symbol of photography. They invented the first digital camera, but hesitated to release it, fearing it would kill their film business. While they were busy protecting the past, the world moved into the future. By the time they realized it, it was already too late. Or BlackBerry, once the badge of power for corporate America. There was a time when if you didn't own a BlackBerry, you weren't truly in business. But when the iPhone appeared, they laughed. A phone without a keyboard? Who would ever use that for work? And within just a few years, they were gone. Not because their product failed, but because their mindset did. Jack Trout called this the blind spot of success. When you believe too deeply in what once made you different, you stop seeing clearly. You stop listening, stop observing, stop learning. And while you're busy celebrating old victories, the market silently takes a new turn without waiting for you. Today, the speed of change is 1,000 times faster. AI writes faster than you, creates images in seconds, and reshapes how people consume information. That means no one can hold a fixed position of difference anymore. You have to reposition yourself before the world does it for you. Think about it. In just a few years, many social media stars have vanished. Not because they lost their talent, but because they failed to evolve. They kept creating content like it was still 2020, while the audience of 2025 had already changed how they think, watch, and feel. Being different is no longer about inventing something new. It's about continuously renewing yourself before you become replaceable. And in this context, Jack Trout offered a piercing reminder. The human mind changes slower than the market, but the market won't wait for the mind. That's the tragedy of many American companies today. They know they must innovate, but they're afraid of losing their identity. They forget that real identity doesn't lie in appearance. It lies in the ability to adapt without betraying your core belief. Apple is still Apple, but the iPod is gone, replaced by the iPhone. And now the iPhone itself is making way for the Vision Pro.
They change constantly, yet the belief, "think different," remains unshaken. That's the proof that only a core belief can keep you standing firm in the storm of change. The same goes for individuals. You can't cling to the version of yourself that once succeeded. The world is shifting every day, and if you don't evolve faster, your difference today will become your outdated version tomorrow. Jack Trout wanted us to understand something simple. Being different isn't something you create and keep. It's something you maintain through awareness, by staying awake to what's changing. Only when you keep observing, keep adapting, can you truly survive in a world where the speed of change has already outrun our awareness. So the final question is, how fast are you changing? Or are you still holding on to what once made you stand out, only to wake up one day and realize the world has already moved on?
Part 6. The final difference: being yourself. At the end of every race, when technology becomes smarter than humans, when AI can compose music, paint, make videos, even speak like us, we have to ask ourselves, what still makes us different? Jack Trout once said, "There's no stronger strategy for differentiation than the courage to be yourself." It sounds simple, but in a world where everyone's trying to be a more likable version of someone else, being real has become the boldest act of all. Look around. On LinkedIn, everyone talks about growth, leadership, success mindset. On TikTok, everyone shares 3 steps to success, 5 lessons I learned at 30. And yet, for all the self-talk, no one truly sounds like themselves. The ultimate difference isn't in what you do, it's in how you show up. It's not about the words you say, it's about the emotion you leave behind. People don't remember what you sell, they remember how you made them feel. That's why people like Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey still live on in our minds. Jobs didn't chase every tech trend, he followed a simple beauty he believed in. Oprah never tried to be liked, she spoke her truth, lived her truth, and shared the pain others were too afraid to admit. They didn't try to be different, they became different because they were honest with themselves to the core. Jack Trout understood something profound. In marketing and in life, you can't build trust on pretense. The market might be fooled once, but the human heart never is. What's real always recognizes what's real. And perhaps that's what many Americans today have forgotten. We live in a society where everything can be optimized, from video titles to camera angles to facial expressions. But the more we optimize, the more we lose the raw, unimperfect authenticity that truly connects us. Think of an old friend. You may not remember what they said, but you remember how you felt when you were with them. Seen, heard, and free to be yourself. That feeling is what every lasting brand, every lasting person must be able to create. And here's the paradox. When you finally dare to live authentically, you no longer have to try to be different, because no one can copy you. They can mimic your tone, your style, even your ideas, but they can't replicate the soul behind what you do. Jack Trout wasn't just talking about marketing. He was talking about life itself. True difference doesn't come from trying to stand out, but from becoming crystal clear about who you are. When you know who you are, what you believe in, and have the courage to live by it, you've already won. Because in the end, the market forgets those who fight to be seen, but it always remembers those who dared to be sincere. And maybe, if Jack Trout was still here to add one last line to his book, he would say, being different isn't something you search for, it's something you return to. You return to yourself. Being different isn't a tactic. It's the way you choose to live, to think, and to show up in a noisy world. No one is born remarkable.
We become different when we dare to stay true to our own values no matter what everyone else is chasing. That's the message Jack Trout left us with. Differentiate or die, not just in marketing, but in life itself.